So, I got the Nintendo Switch, and I'm jumping in at just the right time. Better late than never? I don't know why I always wait so long to get the current Nintendo console, especially since they're one of my favorite game publishers. The first video games I ever fell in love with were the original Mario Bros. Trilogy on the now retro, God I'm old, Nintendo Entertainment System. Nintendo's been a gaming constant in my life. From exploring the world of Hyrule and the Legend of Zelda games, to geeking out and having college dorm room parties with Super Smash Bros. Melee, I'll always be a ride or die Nintendo guy. That being said, Nintendo and I have had kind of a rocky couple of years. The Wii was the first Nintendo console that I skipped, being content to just play with friend systems. Revisiting it years later, I feel a little vindicated as those motion controls have not held up as being fun outside of Wii Sports. The Wii U I didn't get around to picking up until like the year the Switch was announced. This one I regret a little more because the system was like an HD Nintendo DS, and the Nintendo DS is one of the best video game devices of all time. But then the Switch happened. Hoo boy, did I covet that thing from day one. And not just because it launched with Breath of the Wild. Where I dipped in and out of Nintendo's home console offerings, there was not a handheld I skipped. I had the original Game Boy, bundled with Tetris naturally, moved on to the Color and the Advance before jumping into the DS generation, and staying all in until the 3DS retired that branding as a whole. With the Switch being not only Nintendo's new home console, but their mobile one as well, I couldn't wait to pick one up. But then I started working from home, and didn't have as much need for a handheld. My PlayStations and Xboxes served me well enough, but I still had that longing. I missed my buddies, Mario, Link, and Samus. So after snatching up the Series X and PS5, I decided to also finally treat myself to a Switch. Why didn't I do this sooner? I think I undervalued just how much I love Nintendo's output. Not only do they still have some solid Mario games, but there are spin-offs on spin-offs of that franchise. I hate most sports, but I'll totally spend an hour on Mario Golf. And I'm not even confined to just playing the newest Mario games. Both the Wii and Wii U have the Virtual Console, where you could buy classic games and play them digitally. I'll say the Switch takes it in a smarter direction with their Nintendo Switch Online service. Like PlayStation and Xbox, you need this service to play games online. And also like these two services, it offers access to a library of free games. The Nintendo advantage here is that what Nintendo offers is a back catalog of hits, and let's be real, some misses, from across their history. Plus, if you subscribe to this service, they even sell reproductions of old console controllers that work not only with the games in this collection, but any Switch game within reason, like, for instance, Konami and Digital Eclipse's Ninja Turtles collection. As far as the interface goes, Nintendo keeps it simple, stupid. The game icons are far larger than they are on the 3DS or Wii U, and I don't know, it does something to my lizard brain to only see like 4.5 games on the screen at a time, opposed to like a larger slice of my collection alongside a bunch of ads. Now how does she handle? Well, it's a mixed bag. Handheld mode is fine. I recently bought and resold a PlayStation Vita because it would cause severe wrist cramps after like an hour of play. The Switch does not give me that problem, so major kudos to Nintendo. The only real complaint I have is about the Joy-Cons themselves when you try to play multiplayer. You can technically use one Joy-Con for most games, but I do not recommend it. This might be fine for kids, but after less than an hour of play, my poor giant adult hands feel like, well, like I've been playing a Vita. Owie. To combat this, the system includes an adapter to turn a pair of Joy-Cons into a traditional controller. But honestly, I felt more comfortable just freestyling them in each hand. Kinda felt like a cordless Wii and nunchuck combo. Even more comfortable than that is the system's Pro Controller, which not only feels great for long play sessions, but has the best battery life compared to what the Xbox and PS5 come bundled with. Seriously, I would end several 5-hour sessions with a courtesy check just to see if I needed to plug in the controller overnight, and nope. The poor PlayStation and Xbox controllers need to be charged after like every session. The Switch may not be able to output to 4K, but at least I can play it longer, damn it. Being the nostalgic man-child that I am, I dove right in with the NES. I tested the waters with Metroid, a game I had growing up. Now, I've always loved this game, but I could never finish it because it was an early and honestly kind of obtuse exploration game. It's fun to explore, but due to the limitations of the NES hardware, locations blend together, making it super easy to get lost. Metroid is truly a classic that paved the way for some of my favorite games of all time, but it's also really hard to recommend giving a lot of playtime to. Luckily, Nintendo decided to have a little fun with these old ROMs by including variants of the games with included save states to take you to later sections of the game. Finally, you can battle Ridley and Mother Brain without having to draw your own map! Next up, I moved on to the Game Boy section. There's no dedicated controller sold by Nintendo for this, which, how would that even work? Luckily, you can just use the NES controller for these as well. The next game I tried out was Metroid 2: The Return of Samus. This is a game I always wanted to attempt growing up, but never had access to. Not only does the Switch give you access to it, but with the included filters, you can give it the polychrome treatment by using the Game Boy Color mode. Unfortunately, that's the only real compliment I can give the game, as it has the same issues as the original Metroid, if now worse due to the more limited palette of the Game Boy original. Moving on, we've got the Super Nintendo, which I have some thoughts about. This console hit me just as I was developing my video game tastes, and it was the first one to open my eyes to just how much a difference more powerful hardware could make. And Super Metroid is the perfect example of this. Building off the ground laid by the first two installments, Super Metroid has so many quality of life improvements, it makes going back to the other two kind of a chore in comparison. First off, the game's design just pops. Each section of the planet you're exploring stands out beautifully, with each subsection having its own personality as well. To top it off, there's now an in-game map which will actually reveal places you haven't explored yet, making traversal so much easier. If you want to check out the Metroid games, start here. Finally, in my Nintendo Switch Online adventures, I checked out the Game Boy Advance collection. The Game Boy Advance was the 16-bit Super Nintendo upgrade to the rapidly aging at the time Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. Metroid Fusion is the perfect example of this glow-up. Being a sequel to Super Metroid, Fusion improves on the formula even further with new weapons and the ability to grab onto ledges. I know this sounds like a minor thing, but holy crap was it game-changing at the time. What is this Prince of Persia shit? You also get an evil version of Samus chasing you around the entire game, Resident Evil Nemesis style. Compared to the other three games, this one can be a bit more handholdy, with Samus having a space station's AI telling her where to go throughout the game, but I don't mind it. This makes things nice and streamlined, plus it takes out a lot of guesswork, which can be frustrating, especially if you're playing in handheld mode. Okay, we've dipped our toes enough into what games Nintendo Switch Online has to offer. What about games made specifically for the Nintendo Switch? You are absolutely right. Let's talk about Metroid Prime Remastered. If you're unfamiliar, Metroid Prime was the GameCube game that originally launched the same day as Metroid Fusion. While Fusion was a new sequel, Metroid Prime was a prequel, taking place before Super Metroid. It still features the same classic exploration as the other games, but now through the lens of a first-person shooter. This isn't Doom though, as you'll be spending just as much time scanning the environment and platforming around as you do battling space pirates, who have an earworm of a theme I can never seem to get out of my head. This Switch remaster finally brings the game to HD, with a few small quality of life upgrades as well. If you don't jump in with Super Metroid, this is an equally great place to start for the Metroid series. What's that? I keep talking about old games and haven't even covered a single game made from the ground up for the Switch? You're right, and there's one game I know you want me to talk about. The very game I bought the Nintendo Switch to finally play. It's Metroid Dread. What? I didn't get my Switch until after this came out. Metroid Dread is a game I really wish I could recommend. Going back to more of the classic style, Dread is a 3D game that has you exploring a planet on a 2D plane. While there is still a focus on exploration in this game, more focus was put on combat this time around. So much so that Samus even has a new counterattack. There are sections of the game with a one-hit killing robot you have to finesse your way out of each time, and some of the bosses require a lot of patience. In fact, the final boss requires so much patience and pattern recognition that I still have not finished the game yet. I think maybe the developers were trying to target the speedrunning get good crowd here, but I'm more of a filthy casual. I just wanted to explore a new place with my gal pal Samus. But no, everything has to be a Dark Souls now. Anyway, that latter disappointment aside, I love the Nintendo Switch. Or my, Switch? Not only do I now have access to the latest and greatest Nintendo games, but I've also got a kick-ass handheld that's perfect for indie games. One of my favorite ways to unwind right now is to play a round of Vampire Survivors while throwing on a YouTube video. Thanks ADHD, with the Nintendo Switch being the perfect machine for that. Should you get a Switch right now, with a successor probably less than a year away? Oh, absolutely. Buy it for Metroid Prime 4, then pawn that bitch when the Switch 2 comes out a month later probably. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. Is there a console or something you'd like to see me cover on this channel? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to support this channel, be sure to like this video and subscribe. And if you'd like to support me with money, you now can at Ko-fi, where I've got an exclusive video about Forspoken's demo. Check it out. Or don't. Bye.
Every single fucking one of you, you dicks. You fucking dicks.